I did not realize how tired I looked. I am pretty tired, but it shows. All right, so working on the video game stuff. Buildbox to be less intuitive than I would like. I need to get really a little more practiced with it, I think, in order to really get what I need out of it. And I'm still like, I've invested the hours in playing around with Buildbox version 2, I think it is. It's the one that was the primary one when I signed up, and then like 3 months after I signed up for a year, they came out with the beta version of the new one. And that I haven't started to try to learn that one yet because I have hours logged into trying to get a couple of game designs to work in the first version of it. And it feels like it would be treading backwards to try to go, or starting all over again to try to use 3. And I'd have to undo all the work that I did for 2 to get it to work for 3. So, I mean, I have to do some of that, and I may have to go watch some of the tutorials that they make to see some of the tricks they do. The thing is, most of the tutorials they have are like how to build a spaceship flying through a tunnel like Galaga. And I'm like, that's not what I'm making. Like, I don't want to make another Super Mario. I'm not making another Galaga. I'm not doing those things. And so I gotta, like, the things I want things to do in my game, they're not doing in any of the demo games. I think most of them are possible. I just don't know how yet. Like, I know all the components that I want to use are possible. I'm not sure if some of the things I want to do for, specifically for Cuddle Pop, I'm not sure if some of those things that I want to do for the character art, like the different costumes and stuff, I'm not sure they're possible. Not in the way the game's built. I think they are possible if you build a different type of game. That's one of the tricks with Buildbox that I came across early on, is they have these templates that they want you to use, and doing anything outside of the templates is super, super hard to do. And those templates are set up for very simple, off-the-shelf game styles. And if you've been watching me as long as you've been watching me, you know that I tend to break things. So if you give me a piece of equipment, or you give me a tool that is supposed to be used or operated in a certain way, I will find a way to do something with it that it's not supposed to do, or try to do something with it that it's not supposed to do. And Buildbox feels like it's very fenced in. It doesn't allow you the freedom to break between types of templates as easily. It's really hard to get one template to do things that another template does. So, and it would be really nice if the online communities for Buildbox offered some assistance in that regard, but it's super hit or miss. It's just it feels like it's a bunch of teenagers and young 20s practicing making simple games with distinctive art style. So like, they're making a lot of Super Mario games where the art style is Black Cauldron or Superhero City kind of thing. And that's cool. They're just reskins is what my problem with that. You've essentially just reskinned an existing game. And that's cool. I would love to be able to just sit down and do some reskins of certain games. That's cool. I'd do that too. But creating original games, like, I think it's harder to do something distinctly different. And I had a little trouble with this early on with the one of the first games that I was making was the Presence game that I was working on, or Ghost Girl. The mechanic I wanted the character in that game to operate under was one where the character disappears and the player's observation skills diffuse over a larger map with no area of interaction with the map. You're just sort of vaguely aware of your surroundings and seeing what it looks like, but you're not even on the map. And in order to do something, you had to hit a button to make the character appear on the map to do something. And you had a strict timer as to how long you could remain solid before you just became essentially air at that point. And you couldn't affect or do anything when you weren't in solid form. And that's a really fun story game idea. It's unique as far as I can tell, but it's so unique that game building systems that exist for building games aren't set up to make that easy to do, because doing them, like a system that it's sort of like clothing sizes. A clothing size is never going to be a fully tailored suit. But you can go to a store and you can always find an extra large or a large to wear. It may not fit you perfectly, and it may not be the right fit for what you need, but it's close enough for most people's needs. And that's sort of the trouble I encounter when I'm trying to build a game with something like BuildBox. Is it's an off-the-shelf with 13 different sizes that I can play with, but many of the ideas I have are a kimono. They're not a tailored suit. So it's custom. The stuff I build is custom fit and breaks with the style and format of most game options. And so I'm struggling a little bit, and I mean it's a little frustrating also from the perspective of somebody who's used to being able to figure out something relatively quickly. They don't have an intuitive learning curve. The things you have to do to figure out how a thing works, like so much of it's hidden, and they're tutorials, but their tutorials are for people doing things that fit within that custom style set that they're already using, those 13 templates. And so nobody's bothered to try to figure out or tell you how to do what I need to do. And the forums, most questions never get answered as far as I can see. And of the questions being asked, most of them are people trying to do the standard game styles. So I can't search to see if somebody else has had that question answered because nobody's asking my questions. So I'm struggling a little bit with some of that. The bigger one, like the Cuddle Pop's not super bad. I just may not be able to do the paper doll version of that in game. So like at the end screen where you've got your costumes, can you put the new costumes on the character? Probably not. I may not be able to do that feature in game. I may be able to get the character in game avatar to wear the different costumes. That just means that I have to make a bunch of custom artwork for each one. I literally have to essentially make a bunch of mini paper dolls for each costume that I make for them. And each costume may require multiple images for each of the motions that the character can do. So it more than quadruples the workload to get that artwork to work right. So in the meantime, I'm really just more focused at this point on the character motion, object collision, and if I can get the Squid Ink paparazzi interaction going right. And those seem like they're pretty close to most of the off-the-shelf stuff that's out there. So it's entirely possible that I should be able to make that happen. The Liquid Metal Rage is, I think, the one I'm struggling with a little bit more. And I think the thing I'm struggling most with is the ideas I'm working on are in some ways unrealistic for what I can do with the software. It's a level of complication that I've made it too complicated to be easy to do. So I mean, I really think that click, drag, and move the character, that's achievable. Build a maze, that's achievable. Double click to liquefy. I'm not sure about liquefy. You can click on the character to make them reduce in size and multiply in number. And I think that's perhaps the best approach I can do. And then using that state, I don't think I'm going to be able to use the back wall pushing you through things like a syringe. I don't think I'm going to be able to do that. But I should still be able to use the character going liquid and smaller components to squeeze through objects by just maintaining that drag and move action. And I feel like that's close enough. That's good enough to what I need it to be. As long as that back wall maintains the status of the thing that kills you if you can't escape it, essentially. And that technique of making the maze half visible until it's pretty close to the midline, and then you have to plan how you're going to get down the right path. That works. Having power-ups that allow you to stop or even reverse the direction of the moving walls, I'm not sure I can do that yet. I have to figure that one out. I haven't figured that out yet. And then it's really just down to construction of levels, making them frustrating but possible. Barely possible, but possible. And so that's the big thing I need to try to do for that. I need to focus on building the level mazes, making the character, and working through the mechanics to get the character to turn into a bunch of little clustered versions of itself, and see if I can get the physics of those to stay connected to or orbiting the main character. Give them physics almost like a actually might be possible to turn them into physics objects, so that it's sort of like a puffball around the character, and as you tap it, let them string out behind them in a chain that follows the character. That might work. I might be able to make that work. It's hard to say for sure, because no, as far as I know, nobody's tried to do this thing that I'm trying to do. There are people out there who have cloned a character, so you have a character hit a power up, and suddenly you have two characters. And there are a few of them where you can do multiples like that, where you end up like 5 or 6 mini characters trailing after you. But I've never seen somebody try to use it in a way where you can chain them, connect them to each other behind you so you can form a snake to move through a narrow pipe. And then at the end of that, oh yeah, that might be interesting to do. If there's a timer, when you tap, you've got a certain set of time, it should be possible to get through the narrow pipe in that time, but hard. And so if your timer runs out before you get out, have the timer at the top counting down, before you can get to the end, you're like scrambling rapidly trying to get towards the end, and if he expands in that pipe, he dies. That's again, it comes down to figuring out as many ways to make it possible for that character to die often, so it's frustrating enough that you just keep trying. I can do this. And it's a weird thing to try to do for a game. I'm not used to trying to do that to a player. So it requires a little revamping of some of my originals for that game. And I feel like if I'm going to do that, the character animation, that's going to be part of the hard part for me, I think, is the character animation for the main character as the liquid metal ball would be fairly easy. Having a mechanic that when you hit, maybe it's like if I hit the jump button instead of jumping, well, no, the jump mechanic pretty much is pretty straightforward on that. I'll have to see if I can figure out a way to maybe break it so it does what I need it to do. And then hitting that key or tapping that screen or whatever it is you need to do shatters the graphic for the character into a chain or cluster. It's hard to say, because like tapping it, I think it would be fun to have it turn into a open area, but if you tap it and then move the center into a narrow space, to have those other clones that are chained to it string out behind it. It may take some tweaking around with the physics object feature, the jump feature, some of the cloning features. it may take some tweaking. And the animation for each of them, making it so that it kind of blends together in a way that, like, if they're separated enough, it looks like beads of broken apart liquid metal. But if they start to overlap their edges, it looks like they're melding back together. That would be the tricky part, I think. Yeah, I don't know. It may take a lot of work to get the mechanics on that to work right. In the meantime, what I need to do is see if I can just get an object, just for practice version, to get the most part of it to work right. Get the main character, move them by drag and move them around the screen, build the mazes, build it so that you tap it and the main character shrinks enough to fit through small openings, and worry about the mechanics of making the liquid metal effect work right later. That's the hard part, I think. Getting the game to move right, just a move through, shrink, a timer to keep track of how much time that they've got left. And then, yeah, for both of these games at this point, it's really about using circles, squares, and triangles to build the character, the game, and the interactions you need. And work on the art and the special effects once you've got the game worked out. And, you know, it's going to be hard for me to keep that focus on it so that I don't start wondering about, like, okay, can I change up what's in the treasure chests and Cuddle Pop? And can I do character costume design differences? Or looking at the power-ups for Liquid Metal Rage, just dabbling with it, seeing if I can make it do what I think I can make it do. The Paparazzi and Cuddle Pop might be a little difficult too. But I feel like if I can make them get in the way and make it so that every time you try to move, they're still in the way, and bumping into them just means you move way slower, I think that's sort of the best option, I think, for that. And then you hit a button or tap the screen to squirt Cuttlefish ink, and that stuns the characters so that they no longer move, so that you can move around them and get past. I think that's probably the best way to do that. I'll have to learn. See, I'm already trying to figure out ways to make these aspects work. And the power-ups in Liquid Metal Rage, I'll have to see what kind of options are available for power-ups to do. And I feel like, at the very least, there should be power-ups that are like a checkpoint. So that the character can hit the checkpoint and not have to, well, do I want them to start at the very beginning every single time? Depends on how long the level is. I think that's what it comes down to. If the level is short enough, actually, I think there's a way to infinitely loop levels too. So you set up sections of the maze that are repeatable, they're modular. So you can clip module 2, 5, 7, 3, and then the next round out is 1, 4, 6, 5. And then you just keep cycling them through in different patterns, that you can get it to randomly assign a module for its next component. And some of those aspects can be made, well, some of them can be made mildly random. So I have to figure out how, because I think it would be interesting to see if you could do an infinitely looping level and you get points for however long or far into it you could go. And that's essentially what Flappy Birds did. It was just a huge, long, nigh infinite chain of those stupid pillars that you tried to get through the middle of. And it didn't matter what order they came in. You just kept running them, and how far can you get into it? I do think there was eventually an end to theirs, but I don't think the layout of the pipes were predetermined and always the same. So that might be kind of difficult to pull off with the Liquid Metal Rage. There might be some presets and some random alteration ones alternating between them. I'll have to think about it a little bit. Level design for that one's always going to be the hard part because it's integral to how the mechanics work. Whereas with Cuddle Pop, it really doesn't matter what the levels look like. There's a beginning and an end, and there isn't a real puzzle to figuring your way through them. It's just maneuvering and working. Whereas a Liquid Metal Rage, you have to figure out the right thing to do to get through that level, to that section of that level. All right, so I'm a little sore. I'm a little tired. I'm running a little low on energy, but we're almost at halfway. We're almost at the half an hour. Half an hour point. So I think I'll see if I can get some screen images of stuff tomorrow. I don't know that that's going to work well, but we'll give it a try. I don't know if I can get the screen over here. It can be a very convoluted attempt to do this tomorrow, but we'll see what we can do. I might just take the camera and point it over there. Not the whole time though, because that has not worked well in the past. We'll figure it out. If it comes to it, I may end up just posting still images over on Tumblr, which I haven't gotten back to yet. I gotta focus on getting everything I need to get done. That's the curse of the carbohydrate brain right now. Hits the end of the day and goes like, yeah, we're not giving you any more fuel to work right. I made the choice to wear a sweatshirt today, and it was hot. That was not helping either, I don't think. So I'm going to call it here, and I will be back tomorrow with a little bit more assessment of where I am at the end of this week here on the game construction. And then we're back into writing and video making for Sunday. I don't think I'm ready for that yet. We'll see how it goes. All right, call it here. Have yourself a good night and take care. And hope all things are good on your end. See you tomorrow.